Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My husband, Geoffrey, and I were each other's high school sweethearts. And since we had begun dating at such a ripe age, our relationship was pretty to everyone. That is, his family and mine. Well, it is needless to say that I've known my sister in law, Stacy, since then, and we've never really had a relationship. Neither good nor bad, even though the three of us belonged to the same age group. It was like all the efforts I ever made were turned down, and she was too busy hanging out with her friend group. The friend group who was going to bring her where she is today. Well, I couldn't notice anything in the beginning because to me, she just appeared to be the bratty girl belonging to the cool friend group. Well, it didn't take long though, and by the time Jeffrey and I went off to our first year of college, Stacy was in her junior year, falling pregnant for the first time. This was the first of the many times she was going to be asking for help, and we knew how my in laws were. So we decided to help her by paying for her abortion. This help soon turned into her frequently asking us to help her to buy birth control pills, pregnancy tests, and other things which we would help her with because being young, we thought it would have been better to prevent what already happened once than making her avoid something she most likely wouldn't. So we continued giving her a small allowance by the time she reached first year of college, and boy, that is when her lifestyle became more riskier. Now that I think about it, I feel like it was truly us who sort of played a part into letting this continue by providing her the sources that would let her continue. But as I mentioned, being young, dumb, and knowing how strict my conservative in laws were, we just let this happen. So by the time she was in her second year of college, she fell pregnant again and wanted to get an abortion. We knew we had to help her. And so, as it was the holidays and she was home, back from college, well, we had made plans to visit the hospital, and unfortunately, as my in laws overheard one of our conversations, they found out what happened, and a huge fight broke out where I was the one blamed for making their daughter go down such a sinful lane. This should have been a red flag itself, along with the fact that literally Jeffrey and Stacy didn't take my side. But once again, I was able to let go of it. We had gone kind of low contact with his family at that point. We knew we were screwed as we saw my in laws ground Stacy for an entire semester. Although we graduated from college, we weren't still that stable yet, and so wanted to be as distant and careful around them as possible. This low contact continued for over a year as we continued to give them one reason over the other as to why we couldn't continue to meet them, until one day we knew we just had to face them, as Jeffrey's parents invited us over for dinner to discuss something important. All hell broke loose there, as Stacy had not only snitched on us to be able to go back to college. A huge argument broke out and things went out of hand, ending in Jeffrey's parents giving us an ultimatum that either had to get married within 3 months itself or go no contact. After a lot of conversations, Jeffrey and I came to the conclusion that we had to go no contact. We kind of had a timeline of our own relationship, and we just knew that his parents wouldn't accept our decision. So we just stopped speaking to them, and they didn't bother speaking to us. Well, we spent 2 years this way, and it was during this time that Stacy once again contacted us again, apologizing to us and telling us that whatever she did was to get out of the situation. How she wasn't in contact with her parents. We once again let her back in. Big mistake, but I guess at that point she had become like a little sister to me as well, and watching Jeffrey yearn for familial love made me want to give in. Well, it had been around 6 months that we started talking, and it did not take long to drop this bombshell on us. It was a very random day. I was home from work and heard a doorbell ring. As soon as I opened it, I saw Stacy in a complete panic mode, crying hysterically as she explained to me how she was pregnant and didn't know all this time until about a week ago when she gave birth to her son. I was dumbfounded to hear this. It was like I had just started to comprehend what she said until she dropped another bombshell on me by starting to beg me to adopt her newborn. I kept saying no because obviously Jeffrey wasn't here, but Stacy obviously wasn't going to be the one to take no for an answer. I kept telling her how if her parents found out, we would be in big trouble. She told me that she was going to leave the city and that I had to take him in. Otherwise, she was just going to drop him off outside a police station. I didn't want that to happen. It was like my internal maternal instincts were going crazy, and so I decided to just take the baby in. When Jeffrey came home, he was shocked to hear what had happened. Although he wanted the baby, he was too nervous, and so after talking and reaching out to Stacy one last time for custody related stuff, we took the baby in and named him Sydney. Ever since Sydney came into our lives, he became the light of our lives. My in laws did not know about Sydney until we started back contact with them once we decided to get married. Now, this is the point where we were wrong, and I know whatever happened happened because of this lie. But when we introduced Sydney to our in laws, we lied to them that he was our son, that I had given birth to him when we were in no contact. We lied about this mainly under the fear that we once again didn't want to lose Jeffrey's parents, who he missed very much because of this reason. Well, looking at Sydney, they accept him with open arms, and we have a beautiful marriage. We have been married for 10 years now, and Sydney is around 12. He is still the light of our lives. Everything was going amazing too until this situation took place. Well, you see, about a week ago, Stacy showed up after disappearing for another 3 years. This had become a trend for her at this point, coming back into our lives and then just leaving every couple of years. I guess my in laws have realized too that their daughter has gone out of their hands now, and so they've always been waiting for her. This time was no different. Everyone was happy to have her back, except for the fact that Stacy was about to come with a storm so that she could repay me for all the favors I'd given her. Well, you see, she's back here, and apparently this time she's here with none other than her ex, who had knocked her up pregnant with Sydney. Yes, him. And ever since she's here, she has been going on and on about taking Sydney back to his real parents. We had multiple talks about this issue, where I told her that there was absolutely no way that I was just going to give up my son, who I had raised since the past 11 years, just because she was back here with her lover boy. I guess she didn't like that and decided to throw a fit, spilling everything in front of my in laws. I honestly wasn't that surprised when my in laws took her side immediately. After all, it was her strictness that had ruined her. An argument broke between all four of us immediately, where Stacy is weeping fake tears about how I took advantage of her vulnerability and took in her kid because apparently I was jealous of her. My in-laws just berated me, blindly believing over all that Stacy was saying. What hurt the most was that Jeffrey stayed quiet throughout all of this. Ever since then, I have moved in with my parents and started living with one of my friends. I have brought Sydney along with me, but I know this arrangement won't work for long, though, and I will be needing to make a firm decision soon. So, Reddit, what should I do here? A week has passed since all of this has gone down, and my in laws have now started threatening legal action if I don't do justice to my sister in law. I haven't heard anything from Jeffrey so far, which makes me question if he has been in all of this with them all along. Do they have a leg to stand on here? What should I do here? Any judgment, opinion, advice would be much appreciated. Hi everyone. I decided to reach out to Jeffrey today and told him that I was going to be divorcing him if he did not come clean to me. I know these sorts of threats are not good in any relationship, but in the heat of the moment, it all came out. Well, things went immediately downhill as I met him. We started arguing about everything as he claimed every decision that we made together was made because I had manipulated him. Yeah, sure. And it took this man almost 20 years to come to that realization. I immediately knew who put this into his head and told him so clearly. I put everything in place for him, telling him how he was open to go into his mom and sister's arms, but at the expense of our marriage and his relationship with Sydney, because I wasn't going to let him ruin my mental health and definitely not Sydney's. He just wished me luck in court because he was going to drag me through the mud. LOL. It's been heartbreaking to say the least, because this was the man I had loved for years and years and thought that I would for the next upcoming years. I still haven't made a plan as to what to do, but will update you all once I have a firm plan that I want to go through. I met up with Jance today, who is my husband's cousin. We weren't that close to begin with, and so when she called me up to ask me if she could see me, I was quite surprised and hesitant because I thought she was yet another one of the relatives who wanted to give me crap for everything that went down. Well, that was far from the case because she was like the angel that I so very much needed to guide me. She was the one who sat me down and put the last piece of the puzzle in place. She explained to me why everyone's behavior was turning out the way it was. So, for starters, my in laws wrote their bill recently and were leaving a huge chunk of their inheritance for Sydney. It was going to be in a trust fund, and only me or Geoffrey were going to have access to it. Obviously, this did not fit well with Stacy, who suddenly wanted to become a mother to Sydney. She also took Geoffrey into all of this, telling him how if he gets Sydney's custody, he will get a chunk of his inheritance. Being shocked would be an understatement. It was like my heart broke all over again because it all started hitting me. This all wasn't just a misunderstanding, but was something that Geoffrey did on his own will. This was the moment I had given up the slightest hope I had to consider marriage counseling or anything to fix our relationship. I knew I wanted to go nuclear and immediately booked an appointment with a lawyer. Here's a small update. I know I'm updating after a long time, but I had become so caught up with all this that I didn't have the time to update you all earlier. Well, Geoffrey and I finally divorced, and the best thing about it is the fact that he did not get full custody for Sydney. The reason being that he has lost so much already in alimony. He technically has no place to live on his own. Reason being, I own the house we lived in way before we got married. And he had been spending most of his savings because obviously his loving sister was going to give him money to help him. LOL. As for the trust fund, my in laws have decided to put it under Stacy's name, who ran away immediately after that. I guess this was eye opening enough for Geoffrey that he started trying to contact me to talk. Needless to say, I cut him off completely. I have moved back into my old house along with Sydney and immediately put him into therapy. He's been coping with our divorce decently ever since. This has been hell of a ride as it taught me how much people can change over money, and honestly, I know it is pretty late, but at least it happened. I want to thank you all for your amazing support and advice. NTA, I knew some people changed at the sight of money, but not as fast as your husband did, especially considering the fact that your sister in law literally has a history of lying. It's almost like he's inviting trouble over to himself, and honestly, I would suggest you all to run. NTA, your husband should have seen that coming when he left you and your son for money that literally doesn't exist yet. Good job on leaving that pathetic excuse of a husband. So, the situation involves my friend Alex, 27, male, his girlfriend, 21, female, my husband, 29, male, and myself, 27, female. Last year, we all went on a camping, fishing trip that we do annually. But last year was the first time Alex's girlfriend joined. His girlfriend is a really nice person, but she's not super outdoorsy and can be a bit absent minded at times. Here's the issue. Last year, we were hiking in bear country and during peak bear season. Normally, this isn't an issue, but you have to be vigilant and know what to do if you do encounter a bear. So last year, before we headed out on our hike, I asked my friend if he's given his girlfriend the 411 on what to do if we see a bear. He hadn't, so he asked me to. In super simple terms, I explained that if you see a grizzly bear, most common in that area, do not scream and do not run. Avoid eye contact or sudden movement and back away slowly if they aren't moving. She listened, but I could tell she was kind of blowing me off. She also wasn't interested in carrying bear spray or learning how to use it. So, lo and behold, the four of us run into a bear. It was after a pretty sharp turn, so we and the bear were all startled. Alex's girlfriend reacts in the worst way imaginable, starts screeching at the top of her lungs and sprinting back down the way we came. The bear started charging, so I deployed the bear spray, which scared it off. We then collected Alex's girlfriend and went back. We pretty much all agreed that if we hadn't had the bear spray, we would have been screwed. My beef is that Alex's girlfriend treated the whole thing like a big joke afterwards. She posted IG stories laughing about the whole thing and has basically shown zero embarrassment or regret over her stupid ass behavior. I didn't say anything at the time, but my husband and I agreed to basically never go anywhere outside the city with her again. Ha ha. Issue is, Alex and his girlfriend kept asking when we're doing our annual trip, and his girlfriend made a joke about wanting round two with the bear. I decided instead of continuing to make excuses to just be straight up with them. I explained I didn't find the experience nearly as funny as they did, and that I was not willing to go anywhere near wildlife with Alex's girlfriend until she smartens up. Now Alex is pissed. I'm holding a grudge. His girlfriend is pissed that I called her stupid. And my husband thinks I was rude for telling them the actual reason we aren't willing to go with them this year. AITA here? NTA. She endangered everyone's life and is unapologetic about it. She will likely make the same mistake again, and it may not turn out as well. I think people have a right to know how they screwed up. This means they can do better in future or just ignore it and suffer the consequences. NTA. I hate this weird nonsense about it being rude or a-holery to call out dangerous behavior, especially if it threatens more people's safety than just the idiot committing said behavior. I love to hike, camp, fish, etc. I grew up in the woods because my dad worked for the Boy Scouts and I know woods safety literally like the back of my hand, but I still talk to park rangers before going into unfamiliar territory just to be sure I know all the hazards. I would 100,000% refuse to hike or camp with girlfriend again until she demonstrated she had made efforts to educate herself. If you or someone in your party gets seriously hurt in the woods, it is extremely hard to get help. You cannot keep the wounds clean, and you are faced with decisions like splitting the group to get help while leaving a possibly bleeding, injured person to draw predators into the camp. While you probably could have employed more diplomacy in how you addressed it, it was important for Alex and his girlfriend to understand that her behavior was dangerous and risked all of your lives. Sure, she got a great story, but the fact that it was a near miss doesn't change the near part, or the fact that her actions directly caused a very preventable encounter. You tried to ensure her safety and education, but she blew you off. Her inattention directly led to the encounter you were trying to prevent. She put the whole group at risk because she was too entitled to listen properly to the safety talk and then treated it like a joke. If they really want to attend the campout again, tell them both that you and your hubs are not willing to be placed at risk this time. Girlfriend needs to either show definitively she has put in effort to learn wood safety, including demonstrating working knowledge of bear safety, or else politely ask you and demonstrably listen to what you teach. She needs to do that well before you're unloading the cars at the trail. NTA, I've been charged by a bear before, and it's definitely a terrifying experience by yourself, even more so when someone else screws you over. Do not invite them to go camping until she respects the outdoors and the dangers that it can bring.